Hello all. Today we will have a look at Immortal Cities, Children of the Nile, a game that I'm personally very fond of, and I know from social media when I was playing this that some of you were also quite fond of this. This is a game. We'll have a quick look at what this game is all about and why it is perhaps the ultimate city builder. So this is a game that has its roots in Impressions Games, a UK developer and publisher founded in 1989 by David Lester. Lester hired freelancers like Edward Grabowski, famous for his American Civil War game, The Blue and the Gray, for instance. Impressions was in its time a very prolific developer of strategy games and focused mainly on the management genre, trying hard over the years to refine this genre. So they created everything from air company game Airbucks to the car industry mogul simulation Detroit and the Air Force operational sim Air Force Commander. Also designed a variety of traditional war games such as Africa Core in 1991, as well as 4X-like games such as Discovery, another very good game, and also, of course, the famous series Lords of the Realm and Lords of Magic. However, their big claim to fame for a broader audience came with the release of Caesar. Caesar was a game series focused around managing Roman cities and building a vast network of infrastructure and support for the growth of such cities. The most famous and complete game in that series is arguably Caesar 3, which was also the first major hit for the company that managed to sell well even outside of Impression's normally rather niche markets. That concept was taken to other time periods and dynasties with the games Pharaoh and Zeus, respectively, and they proved to also be solid and popular city builder games. Now, Pharaoh is, if you haven't figured that out, the roots of this game. Uh, so in 2002, following the oncoming demise of Impressions, Chris Beatrice and Peter Heffenreffer jumped ship and formed Tilted Mill, a developer that was meant to take up the reins of the now fading Impressions. So Chris Beatrice had previously been the lead designer on Pharaoh, released in 1999, and Heffenreffer was a general manager who had overseen, amongst other things, the production of Lords of Magic, released back in 1997. So the idea formed to create the ultimate city builder, one that would take all of the previous experience from within Impressions, and that would have advanced AI that made all of the little inhabitants seem alive, and that employed an exciting 3D presentation, and a game where lots of intricate systems could intermingle to create the most advanced society simulation yet. So going back to Pharaoh and taking inspiration from all the previous research into Egyptian society that had been undertaken by Beatrice, the game Children of the Nile took form as a launch game for Tilted Mill. So finally released in 2004 as Immortal Cities, Children of the Nile, the game is a masterpiece in design and especially in depth, and one of, if not the best city builder game to date. So the 3D engine envisioned by the designers were eventually taken from Sierra game Empire Earth, to which there is a technical connection. So it's a modification of that. And the game focuses largely on dynamic simulation of the structure of ancient Egyptian society, uh, with an emphasis on society here, and also economy, with peasants dynamically moving up and down through the social ladder, and taking up various vacant positions in your little fledgling city. A key element is the autonomy of these peasants, courtesy of mostly of the team under lead programmer Mike Gingrich, another Impressions and Sierra veteran. So the peasants will live their lives and create little families, and they will also have little children. And once these little children come of age, they will seek a mate, and when they find one, they will seek a way to move out of their parents' households and preferably also move up the social ladder. So there is a great deal of things that can occupy the minds of all these little computer people, and you can glance their every thought, and you can even follow their daily routines in great detail, which is one of the lasting impressions of the game, is that it's very much a soap opera in itself. The game, so it's something absurdly satisfying about this, like watching the baker argue with his children, then go out to gather ingredients and then return, still thinking about the argument from the past argument, and thus having a lower the production efficiency for the day, for instance, or someone having an argument in the street, or someone thinking about his his love interest, for instance. You can watch all these things play out within your city, and it's a very, very detailed simulation of a society, if you will. As the economy is like in real history based on bread as the predominant resource. So peasants will harvest crops, or they will work mines, and they will be self-supporting by their harvest. However, these farmers will need to be governed by nobles, and this class of society will take bread from the peasants as payment. And apart from that, you can take some for yourself as well by taxation. So the nobles will supply money from trade and will purchase luxury goods and so on. And more importantly, they will pay with bread to the government officials class, which will occupy all of the major service buildings. So if the bread economy is important, then of equal importance is the brick making. So all the bigger structures are constructed using bricks, and the brick maker and the bricklayer are very important members of society. Nearly all types of production are self-serviced, in that they will go out and pick their own needed resources given that it exists. And a side effect of this is that you cannot detail what type of production will take place. So, for instance, if you build a luxury market, the type of goods sold and produced by the future owner will be guided by his own choice according to the materials available to him and the location and the availability of a market around him. So you cannot detail control that. More advanced government officials, however, need to be educated, which is why you also need to build an educational system and keep up a supply of trade officials and scribes and so on. And scribes collect taxes, for instance, and thus you can fund your expansion and, more importantly, your military campaigns. So once you start digging deeper into all the interjoined systems and simulations under the hood, the game opens up to a great depth, and there are lots of aspects where you need to fine-tune your little society for it to thrive, so to speak. To expand outwards, you can then build trade markets for goods. You can go to war. You can also send expeditions to nearby areas to try to find resources and new trade partners. But to go to war, you have to prepare a war expedition at the cost of a lot of resources, and then send them out and then hope for the best. Eventually, you will get reports on the outcome. So all of the depth contained in this game and the intricacy with which the social systems work together is in some ways still unrivaled today. And yes, the game is confusing and at times hard to overview. You will need to read the full manual to understand how all the systems are interconnected. And the population will sometimes not do as you might need them to do. But it's a very fascinating little world in its own to manipulate and especially to observe. Tilted Mill, in turn, then went on to create Caesar 4 after obtaining the rights, and a small tactical game called Mosby's Confederacy. Not much else. So Children of the Nile, in my view, remains the pinnacle game for the developer. And it is a passionate game from a crowd that had a vast experience to and a motivation to make the ultimate city builder. Now, you can also create monuments and things like that, lasting monuments, which is also important for scoring. So you can start these gigantic construction projects for pyramids, of course, and other types of monuments, which you can use to improve your flair and your your scoring in the game. Um, so they wanted to have the most detail and depth available and the best simulation of the ancient Egyptian economy that they could have, and a realistic depiction of ancient Egyptian society. And for the most part, one must say that they succeeded in this. And that I think that it is a very good game with a somewhat steep learning curve. But if you like city builders and want to see what an an ultimate city builder designed by some of the most experienced people in that trade would look like, then this is definitely the game for you. It's also the game for you if you want like something like The Sims, but on a on a much larger scale, because of all of the little lives lived out by your peasants. You can follow them as they move along up the social ladder and so on, and you can also help them a bit, or at least try to. So it's a very good game, and I strongly advise that you should try it. And it is an acquired taste, and you should prepare to maybe set aside a few evenings to also learn all of the intricate mechanics, which there are plenty of, more than I can present here. But if you read the manual, which is mandatory, most of it is explained in the altogether excellent manual. So that's it for this quick look of Children, Immortal Cities, Children of the Nile.